Welcome to the Healthiest Tech Talks, where we're talking about some of the biggest challenges facing healthcare organizations today and how technology can transform the way we work so that patients receive better care. I'm your host, Natalie Tollefson, Senior Director of Customer Success at Optimum Healthcare IT. Let's dive in. Awesome. Well, welcome everyone to our third episode of Healthiest Tech. I have some exciting guests joining me today, and we're going to discuss a challenge that many organizations face in healthcare, which is that painfully tedious process of Epic, EMR, integrated testing, and test group management. So before we dive in, let me introduce our esteemed guests. First, we have Geoffrey Blanding. Jeff is our Executive Vice President of EHR Services and CareerPath at Optimum Healthcare IT. For those not aware of CareerPath, that is our early career mentoring and staffing program. Jeff comes with over 14 years of experience in healthcare IT, having served at one point as an interim CIO for a 250-bed specialty hospital system, and also having worked for Epic directly as their implementation and product director. So Jeff, thank you so much for joining us.
Yeah, I'm excited for the conversation.
And then we have Connie Burse, who is the IT testing coordinator from Methodist Le Bonheur Healthcare in Memphis, Tennessee. And we refer to Methodist Le Bonheur as MLH for short. So MLH is a not-for-profit healthcare system established over a century ago. And it has since expanded into 6 separate hospitals, a line of ambulatory surgery centers, outpatient clinics, hospice residencies, and physician practices. And MLH delivers patient care by over 13,000 associates. So amazing to have Connie here with us. Optimum is MLH's implementation partner for their ServiceNow transformation, and we have been working with Connie and her team since early last year and continue to partner on several different areas. Thanks for being here, Connie.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
Awesome. All right. Well, as I mentioned, we are here to talk about Epic Test Management. And I imagine that for many of you listening, if you've ever gone through this process, you probably just tensed up hearing that phrase. I mean, Connie's entire day job is dedicated to this one process. I know I get overwhelmed by thinking about it. So, Jeff, this is a process that you've lived through countless times. I'd love for you to just paint a picture of what this is like for you.
Yeah, absolutely. I've been working in the EMR world and with Epic for 15 years now. And back in my days when I worked at Epic, working on implementations, that was something I spent a lot of time on was project management of testing efforts and strategy and planning it out and then actually doing it. I think any IT testing is complicated. There's all the different types of testing, whether that's unit testing, application testing, interface testing, charge testing, integrated testing. And obviously, especially with an EMR and with an Epic system, you're dealing with mission critical systems. So there's really no room for error. You're also talking about really big projects. These are multiple hundreds of millions of projects usually. And 25 to 30% of that effort and timeline is focused on testing. So it's a big deal. And it's also super complicated. It's a lot of moving pieces to keep coordinated. And really kind of the traditional way you do integrated testing in an Epic environment is you basically get someone from every impacted team. So, 20 or 30 different analysts from the Epic team, maybe another dozen or so from third-party systems and from your interface engine. And you kind of sequester them in a room. And then you have these stacks of often printed out paper Excel sheets, just hundreds of pages of Excel tabs that you printed out and you're kind of passing those around. And so you have to get everyone, you'd lock them in a room really to try to be efficient to some extent, or at least to get the time and to get the right resources that you need to be able to get through them. And so folks would go into the room on, the first of the month, and then they'd stagger out 2 months later and hopefully have gotten through successfully. But it's quite a chore, and it's historically very difficult to get the right resources, to stay coordinated, and to be tracking status overall.
Wow. Did I hear you say that 20% or something like that of the entire implementation effort is testing?
Yeah, I think so. When you look at your timeline, right, and you break it down, you've got design, and then you've got build, and then you've got testing. Those are kind of your major phases. So it's, it is important, obviously, because you do need to get it right for go live, but it also is a significant investment of time and people and ultimately money.
And it's just shocking to hear, Jeff, I don't know what you'd call it, but just kind of the dated or manual way that what you described, like getting a bunch of people in a room with printouts. Why do you think, what makes this process so problematic? Like, why do you think that that's necessary?
I think I'd love to hear Connie's opinion as well, but for me, it's, I think it's just the complexity and the number of people involved. And when you have all those different applications, there's not really one person who knows all those areas and knows all of the steps that you go through, even in a single testing script. So I think it's really, that's kind of what we've arrived at historically as the way to make sure that you have all the right people and you have the right handoffs. And it's definitely old school. So I'd say less than ideal.
Yeah, Connie, has that been your experience of, what Jeff describes? Like what's been so, tedious or painful about testing in your world?
Absolutely. It's extremely difficult when you're executing multiple scripts. I think we've executed over 81 scripts during round 2, and it's extremely difficult. And we're dealing with about 98 analysts that's certified. And so going through that process and actually having to do that manually and trying to coordinate that many people is extremely difficult. So you want to try to streamline some of this so you can actually manage, all of the work that's going through while you're doing your testing.
Yeah, so it sounds like, collaboration is really key, getting all the right people, and hospitals are busy, patient care is waiting. Seems like quite a lot of pressure and a big operation to orchestrate. Jeff, I'm going to kind of ask you this question because you've worked with countless health systems with very complex EMR implementations and upgrades. What's at stake? If testing doesn't go well, what's at stake for that hospital?
Yeah, I think it's, again, these are mission critical systems, whether you're talking about an EMR, an ERP, whatever the system is, they can't go wrong, right? Table stakes is it works correctly. Anything less just doesn't really work. And every epic or every kind of big transformation project I've ever been a piece of, someone at some point has said, we got to stay out of the newspapers. We just don't want to be in the newspapers, which is, maybe a little bit tongue in cheek, but it's also real. Like for those of us who follow healthcare IT news, right? There are some health systems that have been in the newspapers because implementations didn't go well, and there are real world impacts as well, right? Like if you impact the ED, then you have ED buildup, you have EDs going on diversion, or you have billing impacts that have a major impact on the bottom line, and you wind up writing off revenue at a time when I don't think there's any hospital or health system who can afford to write off revenue that they don't have to. You've got stressed clinicians, you've got overburdening physicians and nurses who are already quitting in droves and hard to recruit. So there's really serious things at stake, and the health of the health system is at stake, and in getting your IT right. IT has to be there to make those things better, not to make them worse, and having the right testing processes to be able to do it efficiently, not just for an initial go live, but even ongoing as you get through new releases is really crucial to be able to deliver those services and the platforms that our clinicians and our patients need.
Wow. Connie, you live this day in and day out at Methodist Le Bonheur. What does the pressure feel like? What do you see in your environment when testing is, when the rubber hits the road?
Yes. When that happens, it's very difficult because you have to deliver. You're going to go live, right? And so, but when you go live, you want to make sure that you're going live with quality. You don't want to impact your go live. You don't want to impact your patients, of course. And so there are many challenges that we already face with because we're trying to make sure the quality of the application is there, right? And so if you don't have a process in place before you start, it can be very difficult to manage those testing efforts. And if you can't manage those testing efforts, then you can't get through testing, which means in the long run you'll end up impacting your testing. I mean, I'm sorry, your go live.
And I imagine if go live is impacted, and then there's potential for patient care to be impacted, and that is the worst case scenario. So,
Absolutely.
well, thank you both for just describing that. I haven't personally been involved in Epic testing. My experience is very heavily in the HCM world. But even with that, the fear is impacting payroll, right? And so it's really great to hear kind of from your perspective what this is like. And with that, I'm excited to share with everybody uh, what what we can do, right? Like what can they do to make that process easier and less risky? And so, for everyone who's listening, we've kind of broken this down into three major roadblocks and then tips for how our Epic test management solution can solve for those roadblocks. So, I'm going to pass it over to Jeff. Jeff, I'd love for you to just kind of outline one, two, three, what those roadblocks are. Why are they so difficult for folks? And then you and Connie can share, what some of the efficiencies that you've gained through our EMR test solution.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks, Natalie. So the first thing, and we've kind of been talking about it already, and Connie certainly alluded to it, is the difficulty managing collaboration across many different teams, many different workflows, many different subject matter experts. I think Connie said 98 different analysts that they were trying to manage as part of this process. That's a whole lot of people, and when you expand outside your core EMR to all those third-party systems, and that might be operational owners who you're involving, it might be vendors who are coming into the process. So it's just a lot of moving parts and people to keep on the same page as you're developing test scripts and then actually just running through them and getting the handoff. There's times when you could have a test script pause because for days maybe because you're looking for the person who knows the exact step. And there's lots of workflows where just being an Epic analyst doesn't mean you know how to do all of the workflow steps or that you have the eye to be able to point out, this actually isn't quite right. And so I think that's really one of the more difficult challenges and kind of why that historic strategy of get everyone who could possibly be involved and lock them in a room and don't let them come out until they've checked all the boxes on the paper printouts, kind of where that evolved from, is the complexity of trying to get through that, making sure that you've got the people, that you've got them carving out time on their calendar. And at the same time, they might not know exactly when do I need to be there. It's maybe my step comes up at 9 a.m., but maybe it doesn't come up until 3 p.m. So then that also drives tremendous inefficiencies in actually being able to get through those strips and also have people do the rest of their jobs that they need to go all day long. And I think the big challenge there as well is just having those not necessarily super modern tools like trying to use a spreadsheet, maybe some components of SharePoint or other things, but not necessarily, again, the most modern tools, the most efficient ways to do that. And Connie, from what you were saying earlier, obviously something you've thought a lot about and seen at Methodist. Can you talk a little bit more about some of the challenges you've seen around that collaboration and all the different resources that have to be engaged?
Yes. So it's very difficult, obviously, like you stated, and so it's important that we have some type of efficiency with that. It's very difficult trying to manage that many analysts and then trying to figure out where the handoffs are occurring because we had 6 weeks to kick off, for example, 81 scripts. So, and you got a numerous of analysts. So how do you manage that, right? And so when you're trying to manage it, even through SharePoint or through paper, it's going to be very difficult to see where you are with with each script, right? Because it's multiple people. And so I was telling somebody recently, I said if we didn't have ServiceNow, I'd probably have to have like 10 people helping me manage this whole process because it's a lot of moving pieces and a lot of applications. And so, with that being stated, if you don't have something that you can visually look at and just go through and say, hey, I can see everything. I know where everything is located. I can tell which team has what script. They actually hold each other accountable because they look at it too, and they actually help me. And so when you have like a SharePoint or paper, you can't do that. It's just very difficult to do. It's a very difficult process to maneuver through that.
Yeah, that's a great point. And really good examples. I'm sure many of the folks who are listening have seen similar things where you have to have multiple PMs or project coordinators who are helping out with testing because it's so much to manage and all those different platforms that people are using. So I think one of the key things really is getting a tool in place that consolidates all your test scripts, all your handoffs, all your defect tracking, your defect ownership, all in one virtual place, and really gets everyone working from one source of truth. And Connie mentioned SharePoint. Like over the years, I've certainly seen some tools that testing PMs, testing coordinators have built out around Excel macros or Airtable or SharePoint. You can set up some things that'll help with that. But I think the most exciting thing about what we've done is it's now basically out of the box. It's purpose built. And I think it really doesn't have any of the drawbacks. I mean, even with SharePoint, you can have versioning issues. It's something you'd have to spend multiple weeks, probably 100 plus hours, configuring it to fit the exact need. Whereas this is really out of the box, ready to go, ties together with your existing service management platform.
Correct. I agree.
So the second piece I wanted to talk about then is really managing your defect tracking. So we talked kind of about the people, getting them all aligned. The other piece is just those defects and thinking about, again, specifically an Epic implementation, an Epic defect could already be in multiple different systems. So it's going to be, if you have an Excel spreadsheet or some other way of tracking your test scripts, it's going to be marked there. It's going to be in your ServiceNow or whatever your ITSM system is as an issue ticket, so you can assign it to the right teams and actually work on the fix component of it. It might be an Epic Sherlock system if it's something that you're looking for Epic assistance on. It might also be and or in some other third-party vendor if you need some other integrated system vendor to come in and look at it. And so there's a ton of room for error and just inefficiency there, and additional work for Connie's team and folks like that to try to reconcile across those systems and be able to say, what's the status of this defect and what's it mean, and what's the impact on our test scripts, and what test scripts are actually ready to be run and which aren't. And I think we've all probably seen lost time and lost effort because either you have a test script sitting on the shelf where you're not running it because you're waiting for a defect to be fixed, but actually that defect was fixed a week ago, and you could have cleared that test script and been in a much better place than you actually are. Or also the opposite, right, where you don't know the state of a defect, you wind up running a test script and boom, fail on the exact same defect for the exact same reason. So just wasting time, wasting effort, again, you've got those resources that are doing testing, but also trying to do a whole lot of other things as you get through your implementation. So really trying to have a complete and accurate view of what's outstanding, what's resolved, and what's the impact on script status is really key to being able to get through testing successfully. And Connie, does that sound familiar with what you've seen, and then with the ServiceNow tool, how you've been able to address that?
Absolutely. With ServiceNow, as it relates to the defects, you can actually create the defect on the script or on the step where you're having issues. And then what happens is once you create that defect, on your dashboard, you can see the defect in addition to other things. But you can see like what script it's attached to, who opened it, any comments, any updates that's been made to that defect at that time. You can filter by, different test plans, as far as the defects are concerned. So it's a very helpful tool. And then we can also, we have a slot where you can put the Sherlock ticket. If you have a Sherlock ticket open, we can take a Sherlock ticket, and we created a field in order to place that Sherlock ticket number, so you can relate that to that particular defect as well.
That's amazing. I think that's huge, and really deals with so many of those issues with being able to track those defects. So that's a huge time saver, and just an overall great improvement. The third thing I was going to talk about kind of aggregates the earlier issues as well, and is really being able to have good, relatively easy status reporting. Kind of just mentioned dashboards, and obviously that's key in testing as well, is making sure that as you're going through testing, that everyone knows from the executive level on down, that everyone knows where it is. They have the confidence that we're doing what we need to do, that they're seeing, yes, we are catching defects, but also that we're resolving them. And here's what it looks like, and here's what that means for our overall timeline and our ability to go live on time. So I think that's super important, and often is one of those things that is just a giant time suck, because you can spend, you could probably have someone like Connie spending all day long just trying to understand status and get it updated in your Excel tracker so you can show that dashboard, and let alone actually doing anything to help progress testing. Just understanding status can be a full-time job. So really being able to consolidate that and have it be essentially seamless, right, where it's tied into existing workflows and existing processes that people are already doing to get through their scripts, and to track defects, to report defects, but then have that kind of tied into the dashboard is really, really huge and key. And I think, when you think about implementations, they don't always go perfectly. Like, I've certainly had implementations where at some point in testing, we're making a go, no go decision based on test status, and we're potentially dealing with executive level escalations with vendors based on what we're seeing and reporting out on testing. So it is super important to be able to have that view, in addition to that aspect of making everyone comfortable that, yes, we're doing what we need to do. So can you talk about that, Connie, a little bit at MLH, of kind of the visibility and dashboards, and being able to clearly show the status and the picture of where things are at?
Visibility.
There you go.
Let me tell you. It's so funny that you mentioned that, because the analysts, they keep up with the reporting, because ServiceNow allows that, right? And so they hold each other accountable by using the status reports to be able to look to see what's going on. I know our management team is using it as well. They'll nudge me on certain things and say, "Hey, I see this, I see that." And then, like, at the end of the day, I remember, before I get into that, I remember I was talking to the previous test coordinator before I started, when I first got hired, and she was telling me it could take up to 40 hours a week just to do the status, and she was probably managing 5 to 10 scripts at the time, because she was using Excel, right? And so I had my hand on my head, and I said, "Oh my God," that was the first thing I was thinking. And so I was like, okay, we got to come up with something, because we have 81 scripts, and some of them have up to 600 steps in it, which is a lot.
Wow.
Right. And so now, because we have the ServiceNow tool, and we can look at things by test scripts, so we can see how many test scripts we completed, how many we blocked, how many we failed. And we can also see any test scripts we retested. We can also see how many test steps we have completed, because it's important that we understand how many test steps we completed, because just like this week, we just started a new testing effort, right? And so when you haven't completed a script yet, but you launched 14, 15, 20 scripts, these guys are working. So you want to show their progress. You want to show the percentage of how many steps they passed as they get closer to the goal of passing the script. So you want to be able to, look at that as well, So we're able to look at all of that, in addition to being able to see what was expected versus where we are. And then at the end of the day, when the report goes out, it takes about 5-10 minutes to just gather that information and send it out every day because it's all there, right? And you got the defects, you got everything you need in regards to that according to the scripts, and you can just send it out at the end of the day. So that process, because the day is already long and you're going through and you're maneuvering and you're trying to think and figure out things, you got patience and all of these things. So at the end of the day, you just want to send out your report so you can leave, and then everybody gets what they need in order to, like you said, judge whether we can go or not go.
And that's an amazing statistic that if it takes you that long just to understand status, not only is it obviously hugely inefficient, and that's time that you could be spending on other things, but it also basically means that you almost never have an accurate status. Like, maybe you spend the 30 hours and then for an hour you have an accurate status, and then you won't have an accurate status for another full week. Like that's kind of mind blowing when you're thinking about this is a $100 million plus project probably, and to not have that real time view into a crucial project phase is really that's kind of amazing and really an amazing solution to help out with that here.
I'm blown away. I mean, 40 hours to gather status that immediately gets dated into 5-10 minutes. It probably takes longer to write the email at the end of the day. Oh, wow. Jeff, Connie, that is just incredible. Thank you so much for walking us through those 3 roadblocks and practical tips for how to address that. And I want to recap that really quickly for the audience. And then I think people are getting a little anxious to see the solution. So we'll jump into that as well. But just to recap, roadblock number 1 is the difficulty with managing collaboration of all the different stakeholders and testers that need to be involved. And it's really important to have those people within an EMR test management solution with the same visibility in real time, where there can be automated task assignment. Roadblock number 2, inefficient and disjointed defect tracking. And obviously defect tracking is so critical to get the system to quality standards. So having those defects tied to the scripts, having a more efficient way to report those consistently with notifications and assignment to the remediation team is really, really critical. And then thirdly, the roadblock of lacking that real-time test status update. And I think Jeff and Connie, you guys really made that point super loud and clear a minute ago. But having a way for executives all the way to the PM to the individual testers to see the status in real time is a game changer. So I'm going to go ahead and transition and share my screen. Scott, if you want to make that visible here. Fantastic. This is a screenshot, a moving screenshot of the dashboard. So we call it the health script test management dashboard. And you can see that there's several different widgets here. At the top, it'll loop back, but you'll see a few different widgets that show the overall status, right, of testing. Whether you want to filter that by status, by grouping, by type, you can do that. You also see here a quick view of the scripts themselves, who they're assigned to, how long have they been open, what is the status of them, and the ability to kind of see your workload distribution, right? So if you have 20 different groups that are participating in testing, how many scripts are being worked on by any given group? Is there a particular group of testers that are, backlogging, or do they have bottlenecks in place? And that really allows your PMs and your testing coordinators to drill down really quickly and remove those bottlenecks. And then finally, at the bottom here, you can see defect summary. So really understanding what those critical defects are. How long are they taking to get resolved, and which group is assigned to those defects, so you can hold those groups accountable and give them the support that they need. A lot of this is configurable. All of it's configurable. So we're able to tailor the design of this experience to your specific needs. I'm going to go to the next one, which is the test script management itself. So from that dashboard, everything is interactive. Any metric that you see, any item you see there, you can click into it in real time and see, in this case, exactly which script it is, which round of testing, what the summary of that script is, all the associated steps. And you can actually disposition the test script and the step directly within the tool. So whether you want to pass that step, maybe step 6 passes, but step 7 fails, you can do that directly within the tool and capture feedback immediately to block a certain script. And finally, defect reporting. You're in the script, you're going through those steps, you find a defect directly within the tool. You can open up that defect record. It's already pre-populated with a lot of the details that you need, including which script it's tied to. And you can quickly populate the issue, assign it to a group, and it's on its way. And that group will get a notification. All of this is real time. People are able to act quickly on what needs their attention, and they're able to prioritize their actions so that we can move this process along. Jeff, Connie, anything you want to add to the solution? Connie, especially you've been using this at Methodist Le Bonheur. What's it been like for your team?
They love it because it allows them the ability to not have to be in the office. And then plus we have implementation partners, and they're not here in Memphis. So, and they're helping us test too. So, but they're part of those teams. So if they're a part of those teams, then they're able to get the notifications like you stated, and it'll take them straight to the script. And then they can go ahead and proceed with their steps, no matter where they are, what country, what city. They're able to execute their scripts, and then it moves to the next team, and then so forth and so on. It just continues like that. And so they don't have to be on site to do those collaborations. They're able to, and then the next team will get a notification, and then the next one. So it just continuously move through the flow until you get to the end, to the last team, and so until you complete the script, basically. So I mean, they love it because they don't have to be here. We're not worried about if SharePoint's going to go down. That's happened to me before, so I had to bring that up. So they're not worried about if SharePoint's going to go down. They're able to maneuver, and just kind of, it just makes it easier for the analyst. And we have a lot of analysts. We have a lot of tests. We're getting ready to start our PRCT, and that's 31 more scripts. And then we still have our integrated testing efforts going on as well. And so it's a lot of testing going on, and you can't do that. You wouldn't be able to maneuver with this many people at the same time if we didn't have this tool to help us do that. And then I would have to have like a bunch of people helping me, and I'm doing this every day. I'm able to manage it. It cuts down on, it allows the project managers to be able to do work, focus on their area of the project instead of worrying about helping me every day. So
that's incredible because, these, like Jeff mentioned, these programs are costly and staff is hard to come by. And so just the business impact that I'm hearing from having a solution that is able to gain this many efficiencies is very, very material. So Connie, thank you so much for sharing, from your experience at college. Our team has really enjoyed working with you. We just are excited to continue to deliver so much more value to your hospital over coming months. So everybody is listening, if you are experiencing challenges like what Jeff and Connie have outlined here, and you're curious about this tool to help improve your test management experience, or really to help optimize Epic overall, Optimum is uniquely positioned with our deep Epic expertise as well as our deep ServiceNow expertise. There are several solutions available across many different use cases where we can use ServiceNow to help optimize your Epic usage. And so we're really excited to talk about that, and we'd love to talk with you. But at this time, why don't we kick it off to some Q&A? I think there might be some questions in the chat here. I think, Scott, you're going to join us and help us facilitate Q&A. So let's make sure you can get back on our screens here.
Oh, it looks like Scott might have some technical challenges.
Okay. Let's see. Yeah, we do have some folks that are asking about how do you get this application, right? Louis, if you maybe want to come on screen here as well, if we're able to get you on here. We have Louis here, who's our chief architect here at Optimum, former Epic analyst as well, and ServiceNow expert. He's been heavily involved in the EMR test management solution.
Hey guys, nice to meet everybody.
Louis, what kind of questions are you seeing here, and what information can you provide to help our listeners?
Yeah, there's actually been some really good questions. So a common trend that I'm seeing is, how do I get this installed into my environment? And that's something that Optimum would be able to help you with. This is an Optimum offering, something that we built that will be published to the ServiceNow store soon. And our team would help your ServiceNow technical team get this installed within your environment. And then we also provide a formal technical handoff and technical documentation, so that way you can help maintain it going forward. And of course, you'd always have Optimum's help as well to help you troubleshoot any issues.
And I'll add that, for organizations that don't already have ServiceNow, we've been talking to a lot of customers that this is a really great use case to get that buy-in, to just show really specifically how ServiceNow can help with Epic testing. And there's so much more value that the platform offers. So that's one scenario we see a lot. But then for those that are using ServiceNow for ITSM or maybe some other functionality, this is one of many examples for how to increase the value, right? How to continue to optimize the ROI that's coming from a platform as powerful as ServiceNow. So very relevant to all.
And the other thing I was going to say on that is, for the folks who are long past their implementation, long past their Epic go live, still very relevant, right? Testing never goes away. You have your Epic quarterly releases, you have enhancements and standard changes and other change requests that are going into production all the time that have testing needs that go along with them and make sure everything's working the way you think it will before you send it into the prod environment. And so I think the post-live use case for this is just as compelling, really, because you have people who are difficult to coordinate. They've got a lot of other things going on, and in that case, they're kind of outside of that framework of the implementation, where it's sometimes even more difficult because they have a million other things going on and aren't kind of all on that same implementation train at that point. And then you also, within the ServiceNow platform, have the ability to kind of tie it back to your change advisory board and your change management process, and be able to quickly understand what change requires what testing scripts, and to really drive that efficiency forward in the post-live environment as well.
Yeah, that's a good point, Jeff. And a couple other questions that I'm getting in the chat along those same lines is, with the post-test or post-go live testing, we can also use it with different types of testing. I think you mentioned this earlier. We have our TDR testing, our user acceptance testing, integrated testing, unit testing. Anytime where you have some sort of test scripts, whether that's something from Epic that we can import into ServiceNow, or it's test scripts that your organization had created on your own, you could really use it for any type of testing. There's filters built into the dashboards. You can build specific plans. So whether you're doing round 1, round 2, or TDR testing, it can be used for all of those different types at the same time.
Great. Anything else you want to add, Louis, just from what you're seeing? And I know we're live on LinkedIn, we're live on StreamYard, so lots of folks listening in.
No, some really good feedback so far through the chat. I'll go ahead and continue writing back some of the questions that I see in the chat.
I love Stacy's comment here. I've been testing Epic for 18 years. I don't know why anyone would not want this. Can you share a specific contact? Yeah, so we're gonna actually, Lindsay just posted in the chat here a page to contact Optimum, we are happy to get on a call and talk about this. We've seen it add so much value, and that's what we're all about here. So fantastic. All right. Well, let's close us out here then. Jeff, Connie, just a really sincere thank you for joining us today. Same to you, Louie. I hope everyone listening benefited from hearing your experiences.
Great. Thanks.
Yes, thanks, guys.
Yeah, and thanks everybody for joining the conversation. Be sure to tune in next month. We do Healthiest Tech Talks every month. We pick a new topic in healthcare, and we'd love for you to just be a part of our community. So everybody take care, and we'll see you next time.
All right. Thank you.
Thanks.